Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Free Minds Thrive podcast, where we are freeing our minds so we can thrive. Freeing our minds of conformity, of complacency, of the wrong perspective and mindset and ideas that keep us from being able to thrive, that keep us from being able to live the life we really want to live. And there's so many components to this, so many aspects, so many pieces that I've explored and so many that I have yet to discover. And that is why this podcast exists. I decided to explore the various aspects and elements on a quest, on a journey to find the answer, the missing puzzle pieces on why it is that so many people are barely surviving. Why so many people are miserable, unhappy, unfulfilled, unhealthy, unmotivated. Why so many people are living a life that, quite frankly and sadly and tragically, they'd prefer not to be living. And that's not okay. And now there's so many things that go into it. There's so many areas of expertise that people spend a lifetime exploring and studying and researching and learning about, and then going out there and doing something about. So to expect that one man by himself, one Bobby Vincench, can figure it all out is crazy. But that's not going to stop me from trying. For you, and for me, and my family. For my country, for my world. Maybe you'll hear me repeat something that you've heard somewhere else, and it just reinforces that this idea is probably something worth considering, so you can thrive even more in your life. And today I want to talk about something that is very, very near and dear to my heart. And I discovered recently, as I really reflected on it and thought about it, that I've been actually thinking about this and living like this and doing this for a very long time. And that is that I use my legacy, my future legacy, the stories and the memories and the feelings and many other things that I leave behind someday when I leave this world, I use that to inspire my life. And so today I want to talk about how legacy inspires life. And I want to add a little extra something there, a little asterisk, a parentheses. Legacy inspires life if you let it. If you let it. Not only do so many people not let it, but so many people aren't even aware that it can be done. So what we're going to explore today together is this concept of using your legacy to live a better life. And how exactly would something like that work? Now, there's only so much I can say and get done in one podcast episode, but I plan to explore this more in the podcast. I plan to explore this more in various videos and things that I'll share online. But perhaps most importantly for some of you who just don't have the time to really not only explore this, but to dig deep in your own life, to leave a lasting legacy and improve your life, I have the Your Thriving Legacy program. We have various ways to help people to really dig deep and leave a legacy behind that they'll be proud of, to tell their stories, their memories, collect their mementos, and put all their various things together so when they're gone someday, they've left something intentional behind for the people who love them and miss them. And so when they're standing on the other side of everything, looking back, no longer here in this world, no longer able to reach through and hug someone or say some final words or leave parting words of wisdom, that you've already done that intentionally. So if you go to www.yourthrivinglegacy.com, we will guide you through the process of doing that. All right, so let's get into this because this is something that I really wish more people thought about. I really, truly wish more people thought about. And you're here and you're listening, so you're already way ahead of most people. So your legacy, the things you'll leave behind someday, could be something that just happens. It just happens the way it's going to happen because you're not thinking about it intentionally. You live your life. You pass on to the next world or realm or whatever it is. And then you get there, and whatever it is that you've done, whatever it is people think about you, that's what's left behind. That's it. Whatever happened, happened. And then there's living in the moments while you're in them and realizing that you are writing the words of your story. You are writing the current chapter. And eventually you'll be writing the next chapter and the next one and the next one until eventually the book is ripped out of your hands. Probably unexpectedly, because damn near nobody knows when they're going to die. And that's your story. But if you were thinking about it intentionally, it's going to be a riveting story. It's going to be really exciting. It's going to be something that you knew in the moments you were in them. Exactly what you were doing and why. Imagine that. Living a life of intention. Living a life with such focus and emphasis on doing the things you're doing and knowing why you're doing them. Perhaps even making moves and decisions and doing things that are working toward a greater legacy. Now, for some people, this is stressful. They find it, quote unquote, easier to just go with the flow, let things happen. Whatever comes my way, comes my way. And then, of course, the problem with that is you're never really in control of anything. You're just kind of a spectator of your life. You're just there, seeing what happens as it happens. And the sad part about that is that other people don't think the same way. So when you step back from being a director in your movie, when you step back from perhaps even being a conscious actor, and you're just in the audience, well, there are other people who are intentionally taking actions that are now going to affect your life and influence you. So there are other people who say, no, I'm going to grab the reins and control my life, and maybe even, and very likely, the lives of others. Yes, there are people out there who are running the world. There are people out there who are doing with intention. They've got a plan. They're working towards it. And you don't have a plan? Well, then you're part of their plans. Do you understand? And so for people who say, I just want to go with the flow, yeah, it may sound easier. It may take some sense of responsibility off your plate, and somewhere in the back of your mind, that takes the anxiety away, that takes the stress away, that makes you feel just a little bit easier every day because, well, there's no real responsibility, there's no real burden or weight on my shoulders. Because I'm not in charge, someone else is. I'm just here enjoying the ride. Well, that's very nice. But the problem is, you weren't put here to just enjoy the ride. You might be playing on a playground, in God's playground, but you were put here with a set of skills. You were put here in charge of whatever it is you're responsible for. Maybe you have children, maybe you have family, significant other. You are here to take your unique talents and skills and do something for yourself and the world. Can you imagine the difference between a life of intention, where even if you are in the moments you're in, even if you're still in the moment and mindful and present, that you are intentional. There is not any incompatibility between intentionality and mindfulness. There is no incompatibility between intention and focus and executing a plan and having a vision and being in control of your life. There's nothing about that that takes away from being present in the moment, enjoying life, being part of life. In fact, I would say life is more enjoyable when you're in control of most of your life. Because you may not always know what to expect, right? There are still elements you don't control. However, you have self-esteem, you have self-confidence, you are resilient, and you feel a sense of power, which you deserve to feel because you have power if you choose to use it. That doesn't mean power over others. That doesn't mean abusing that power. That doesn't mean misusing that power. It certainly doesn't mean using any power you have over yourself and of others to hurt people. Well, that's a terrible person. But you're a good person with a good heart, a good mind, a good soul. You're listening to podcasts like this. You're listening to words like this. to messages like this because you want to be better. Not to dominate over people, not to hurt people or take away, because you're good. And so since you're here to be good, why not be in control? Why not be one of the people, one of the good people, one of the good guys who's helping make the world a better place? Not just living in the world that the bad guys are in control of. And I've got a little wake-up call for you. You may not be ready for it, and we're not going to spend time on it today. But a lot of bad guys run a lot of the world. A lot of bad people are in control of many elements of the world that influence your life. So when you do nothing, when you kick back and say, I'm just going to enjoy the ride, I'm just going to take things as they come, you are empowering bad people. And in an indirect way, you may even be part of the problem, because we need good people who are involved and taking action, present and intentional. So what in the world did all of what I just said have to do with legacy and that inspiring your life? Well, to think about your future legacy you're going to leave behind, to sort of time travel to the end of your life and imagine, what is it that I want people to remember about me? What is it I want people to think about me? What messages and stories and things have I learned? What lessons have I taken from my life experience so far that I need to hand down to the next generations? Even if only a handful of people ever see or read what it is you leave behind, you will leave an everlasting mark on the lives of the people who are touched by it. You will bring peace, not only to yourself in the next life, knowing that you left something behind, but you will bring peace to the people who are left behind, your children especially, your significant other. God forbid your parents, if they're still alive when you leave. Can you imagine that pain they would have to see their child gone? Some of you might even have had that happen. And it's a terrible thought for me as a father. I can't even imagine. But I'll tell you what, I have no intention of allowing my life to end without leaving all of what I have learned and all of what I think may be important and may be valuable to the people I'm leaving behind. I have no intention of leaving without ensuring that I leave that behind. That's a type of insurance policy most people don't think about. Your legacy insurance. Your legacy insurance. You have health insurance so that if you get sick, hopefully it's taken care of. You have life insurance so that, God forbid, you die one day suddenly and you're not able to help participate in bringing income in and helping take care of your family, that they may be taken care of, or at least all of the hardship that they may endure after that and suffer is mitigated because you have that policy. But what about the emotional pain that people are going to feel when you're not here anymore? Many of you know that feeling. You've attended wakes and funerals for people who have passed away, who meant something to you. Maybe even people who are very close to you. So, if you think about it, and in those moments you may have even thought to yourself, wow, this is real. This could really happen to people. It's more real when it actually happens, even though we all know that it happens. When it really happens, that's a wake-up call. But what happens? The wake ends, the funeral ends, and you go right back to where you were before, doing the same sorts of things you were doing before. Not really awakened from the fact that you'll someday be gone and doing something about it, but going right back to it. It's almost like, for a lot of us, it's easier to just pretend death isn't real than to actually acknowledge it. And I actually know that's the case for a lot of people. Because in some ways, I'm one of those people, or I was. I was one of those people who would hide from the idea that death is real. Because I am what some people would characterize or label as an overthinker. To me, it's not overthinking, it's just thinking as much as I need to think about things. But I notice to a lot of other people, they say, wow, you think a lot about things. think about things from every angle. You think about things ahead and behind and left and right and up and down and all these different directions. How do you do that? Don't you go crazy? Well, no, because that's how I'm built, right? And other people can bear other burdens, and other people have other superpowers, and other people have other capabilities that I don't have. Well, one of mine is I quote unquote overthink, or I think a lot. And so when I think about death, when I really think about death, when I really think about that I won't be here someday, it gets deep and heavy fast. I don't feel bad about it. And I never really got to the point in my life where I got so down about it that it bothered me or depressed me. Luckily, that was something I never had to deal with. But I have gone down the sort of rabbit hole in my mind of what that really means, that I am immortal and my life is finite, and that I don't really know when it's going to happen. It could be right now while I'm recording this podcast. It could happen tomorrow while I'm driving. It could happen any moment in any way, and none of us are really prepared for it. But we try to prepare, right? We do our best to make sure various things are in line. But most people wait till they're older to really do something about preparing, because you imagine, oh, when I'm older, that's when I'm going to go. Well, maybe that's when you should go, when you're much older and you've lived a nice, long, healthy, beautiful life with many, many, many memories, and you feel like, okay, I don't want to leave, but if I had to go, I lived a full, good life. Hopefully a life full of truth, and a life full of goodness, and a life full of happiness and health. Hopefully it wasn't a miserable, unhealthy life for too long. And so we need to do something about ensuring that we use that legacy not only so that we have a sense of peace, so that we have that insurance policy when we get there at the end, but also so that while we're here now, we're living a better life. We're taking advantage of opportunities that present themselves and not just letting them float away and dissipate into the air. Not just letting them vanish because we didn't jump on them because we thought, I've got a whole life. That wasn't the right moment. I'm not ready. What would it look like if you knew you would be dead in a week? You've heard this before. If you knew you had 24 hours to live, what would you do? Well, you would do quite a few things differently, wouldn't you? Some of them are things that you may not want to do now. Since you're not really sure you only have 24 hours left, do you really want to live with that short term of an expectation in your head of your possible existence? Do you really want to live like you only have 24 hours to live? No, probably not. But it's still worth, as an exercise, contemplating and reflecting upon what you would do if you had a day left, because that will show you where your priorities are, what really matters to you, right? What really truly matters to you? What are you leaving on the table that you're not dealing with that needs to be dealt with now? Many, many things, but I'll give you some ideas so you can begin to think about it with me and get into the frame of mind that I'm in, where I am living my life for my legacy, but also living a better life now because of it. And one of the things I would miss immediately upon meeting the end of my life and knowing I'm gone forever is I would miss the moments that I was in, hopefully that I was in, but I would miss that I no longer have the opportunity to be in them, to truly be present and be there. So I use that to inspire me today to be as present as possible, despite the fact that I have responsibilities and I have to make short and medium and long-term plans and goals, that I have to do things during the day that, some of us would rather not have to do. But I do my best to be present, knowing I won't be here someday. And when my daughter wants to talk to me about something, I get down on her level and I look her in the eyes and I listen and I respond thoughtfully and I'm there. That almost nobody comes before the most important people in my life if I have that ability to do so in those moments. My daughter, my wife, my closest family, they just come first, right? They have to come first when it makes sense. It's not always perfect. Everything's not perfect just because you start thinking that way. Life is still complicated and we don't always get exactly what we want. But that being said, when you're thoughtful and intentional, it changes things. Another thing at the end that I would wish I did is immediately would wish I said my final words, knowing that I had that time, which many people don't get that. I wish I had said some final words. When I put myself in that place, I'm like, oh my God, I wish I can go back and just say a few more things. To hug and kiss just one more time. To love just one more time. To embrace just one more time. Just to be there one more time. And I use that to try to remind myself to try to do that as often as I can remember to do it. Nobody's perfect. You're not going to get this right all the time. But I use that to be present. Again, it's back to being present, right? To be present, but to speak up. And I use that to say the things that need to be said if I can remember to say them. And since I am thinking like this pretty often, I try to leave no words unsaid. All right? I try not to go to sleep with something negative going on between me and the people I care most about. I try to tell the people that I do love the most how much I love them and how much I care about them. And even I don't get this exactly right. I'm still working on it. I think for our whole lives, we are a work in progress. But if you can honestly say that you tried your best while you were here, that you tried your best despite being an imperfect human being who's going to make mistakes, who's not always going to get it right, then I think you could feel pretty freaking good about yourself, don't you? If you're trying. If you're not, you know you're not. You know you're not. And you can't fool yourself if you really think about it. You might fool almost everybody else, but you can't fool yourself. You know if you're actually trying your best and doing your best. You know. Don't fool yourself. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Call yourself out on it now. Be honest with yourself and say, you know what? You're really not trying your best. You're really not doing your best. Do better. Have a higher expectation for yourself. Live up to your full potential while you're here so you don't regret not doing that someday. We can go down so many different paths on this, and that's why I'm excited about this podcast is we're going to explore those things. But let's stay focused on legacy. The other thing you'd want to think about is what are some lessons you've learned throughout your life experiences? And I don't just mean the good times, I especially mean the bad times. Yes, the traumas, the mistakes, the regrets. Somewhere in every single one of those is a lesson to be learned. And what if you can be very intentional and super specific about what those lessons are, and then put them into words to leave behind so that others in your life can learn from those things to take them to heart in what will be in the future difficult moments for them when they no longer have you there. And they will read your words and they will think about them in a way that perhaps they wouldn't have even thought about them while you were alive. Because sometimes, oddly enough, strangely enough, the heavy weight and truth of the words of people who have left us in this world, sometimes we take them a little more seriously. Sometimes they loom larger in our minds for some reason. I don't know exactly what that is, and perhaps we can explore that one day. If any of you out there know or have some idea, let's talk about it someday, okay? Let's do an episode. So you've got these lessons. Share them. Share them. And while you're sharing them, give the people in your life a chance to learn them now. Write it down. Put it together in a collection of these things that you're doing. Perhaps you're writing letters, final words to the people that you love the most so that they can hear from you when you're no longer here. You're writing down these lessons you've learned so that people can benefit from them someday. Putting them together in some sort of collection. You're living more intentionally every day. You're loving deeper and stronger and better every day, so you're living a better life now. But also, what are you going to regret about not taking care of yourself? What are you going to regret in the future about not caring for your body, your mind, your soul? Are you going to say, I should have been doing this more? Especially if, God forbid, you end up dying from something, you end up moving on, passing on from this life because of the result or consequence of not caring for yourself. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. And that scares me. And that actually inspires me. It's interesting, my fears and the things that scare me, if you listen to the words I'm saying, are things that end up inspiring me. Because I don't like being afraid of things. I don't like being scared of things, especially if they don't make sense. Especially if they're holding me back. I don't like that. Right? I just don't like that. And so for me, I try to battle those fears and battle those things I'm scared of so that I don't regret someday. So that I don't live a life of fear. So that I don't leave a legacy behind that I'm not totally happy with and proud of. And so when I'm afraid of something, when I'm scared of something, I go at it. I face it head on to the best of my ability in the safest, most reasonable, rational way possible. Because some fears are legitimate, but many fears are part of our imagination, and we're imagining things that may not ever even happen. We're amplifying the seriousness, the ferociousness of some of these fears and things to a level that is just not the reality. And that's, of course, affecting the way we live. Your imagination's getting the best of you. And I don't like that happening. But I use those fears and those things I know I'll be regretting in the future to make sure I don't make the regrets at all. In a way, it's kind of like time traveling, right? You're traveling to the future to say, what is that going to look like? And then you're looking back and saying, and what if I had no chance to affect it? You're 70 years old, you're 80 years old, you're 90, 100, and you finally leave this place and you reflect for a moment on all that you've done. What are you going to regret? Now, I'll tell you that if you really do this exercise and you sit down and you think about that, you're going to identify some very specific things right away. You already know what you're going to regret, because chances are you are not living to your fullest. Chances are. So when you go to the future and you imagine that, and you think about your legacy, and then you come back here, you time travel back to the moment, here you are again. Well, now you've got a lot to work with. You've got a lot to work with to make your life better before it's not good. While you still have control, while you're still here. All those things that came up for you, do something about them so that the legacy you leave behind is something you'll be proud of and something that will bring you peace. Let your legacy inspire your life today so you can craft and actualize the legacy you want to leave behind. This is so important, guys. One of the things in my mind that scares me the most is the idea that I would get to the end and I wouldn't be happy with what I've done. That I wouldn't be happy with how I handled things. This comes up with my daughter all the time. She's not even 6 yet. She'll be 6 in a couple of weeks. And whenever I have an issue with her, whenever we have an issue with each other, whenever we have a situation that I would prefer not happen, but that I'm in a situation and I have to handle it a certain way as a dad. I have to handle it a certain way as a dad, and I have to handle it a certain way as a person who wants to handle it in a way that I won't look back on and say, why did I do it that way? Why did I do it like that? So in the moments I try to think about that ahead of time, am I going to be happy with the consequences of this decision? Am I going to feel good about myself with the way I handle this? Or am I going to handle it reactively? Am I going to handle it in a way that is just me reacting? Maybe I'm angry, maybe I'm impatient, maybe I'm hungry, right? You guys have heard of hangry, right? You're angry because you're hungry. Well, that happens a lot with people. Sometimes if you don't eat enough and you're in a situation, you handle it in a way you wish you didn't. So we handle situations sometimes and then we're not proud of what we did. But what if in that moment we paused, we took a step back, we took a deep breath and just thought for a second, am I going to be happy with how I'm about to handle this? And if not, how am I going to wish I had handled it? Yes, it takes a little extra time. Yes, my friends, it takes intentionality. And some of you are thinking, I don't want to live that way. That's great. So keep winging it. Keep taking it moment by moment without really thinking about what you're doing and why, and see how that feels in the future. I can nearly guarantee for most of you, it is not going to be a pretty picture if you're looking back on a life that you were just winging. If you look back on your life and just think, that's just how it happened, because that's how it happened. No, you have the power to control your reactions, your circumstances, and to craft a future that is as close as possible to the one you want to occur. You've heard of law of attraction. You've heard of life mastery. You've heard of all these words that basically mean, imagine the future you want. Know that you can and will have it. Take the actions necessary to get it. And if you do those all together, you will get the closest thing possible to what you in your own mind are projecting intuitively into the future is what you want as you meet those future present moments. Remember, the future's not real. It's your imagination. You never have a future. You're only ever living in the current present moments. And so living in these moments, that one by one by one will be that quote unquote future. You can plan to make those future moments what you want them to be. You can plan to make those future moments as you arrive at those destinations what you wanted them to be if you plant the right seeds, if you water those seeds. Of course, if you step back and let them grow as they will. Let God or the universe do its work. Take into mind that just because you watered it and left it in the sun and did all the right things, the plant might not bud and it might not bear fruit and it might die unexpectedly. And you say, but I did all the right things. But that's the best you can do, my friends. That's all you can do. And if you didn't do it, you'll regret not doing your best. But if you do it, you can feel amazing about the fact that you did what you could. You did the best you could. And in the end, that's really all you can do. But you must do it, or it's not done. You must do it, or it's not done. So imagine that legacy. Imagine how you'll feel at the end. Imagine what your current trajectory looks like as far as your legacy goes. What is your legacy going to be if you just continue doing the things you're doing? And if you're not happy with elements of it, come back to reality and make the changes. Let your legacy inspire your life and begin to make decisions and do things that will allow you to leave this world someday in peace, but also that will allow you to live a better life now. Use your legacy as motivation and inspiration to live a better life. I do this. I'm so happy that I do this. I wish more people did it. And that's all I'm encouraging you to do, is to do that. See how it feels. Do it for a few weeks, for a few months. Do it for a year. Just try it. See what happens when you live your life based on the future that you want to exist. See what happens when you take the things that you want to say to people and that you want to leave behind and you intentionally put them together now so that someday that legacy looks exactly like what you want it to be. If you want more on this, you can go to yourthrivinglegacy.com, yourthrivinglegacy.com, and we'll help you through it step by step. If you want to see what else we're up to at Free Minds Thrive, go to freemindsthrive.com. We've got plenty going on. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you'll consider all that I've said. I hope you'll listen to some of the other episodes here and check out our channels on YouTube and Rumble and any other spaces that, as you're listening to this podcast, we may exist on. You could look me up, Bobby Vincench, Vincench. You could look up Free Minds Thrive. That's Free Minds Thrive. Otherwise, I'll see you again soon. Take care. Have an amazing day, guys.